The alarm klaxons blared through the hallways of Galactic Academy's biology department as Krill Zendora scrambled to shut them off. His forearms moved frantically over the control panel while his large, owl-like eyes blinked rapidly with stress. The emergency system had activated when the environmental controls in Lecture Hall 7 detected a sudden spike in stress pheromones from multiple students. "What in the 7 moons is happening in there?" Krill muttered to himself as he finally silenced the alarms. The pheromone levels were still climbing on his monitor, indicating extreme distress among the Traxian students. Professor Nelb had been in the middle of his controversial pain theory lecture, a topic that always stirred debate among the interspecies student body. Krill grabbed his emergency kit and rushed down the corridor toward the lecture hall, his 3-toed feet slapping against the polished floor. When he burst through the doors, he found exactly what he feared: 37 alien students in various states of panic. The Traxians had turned a pale yellow color, a sign of extreme anxiety. The Volturi students had extended their protective membranes, and the 2 Zelthorian exchange students had completely retreated into their exoskeletons. At the front of the room, Professor Nelb, a tall, spindly being with translucent skin that revealed his 3 pulsing hearts, was trying unsuccessfully to calm the class. "Please, everyone, maintain composure. This is merely a theoretical discussion." Nelb's voice modulator was turned to its most soothing frequency, but it wasn't working. Zira, a top Traxian student whose scaled skin now glistened with stress secretions, stood up, her voice trembling. "But Professor, you cannot possibly expect us to accept such barbarism as scientific fact. Pain is a terminal condition. Every civilized being knows this." "That's right," chimed in Blork, a bulbous Garthan whose eye stalks were fully extended in alarm. "The very notion that a sentient being could experience significant nerve trauma and survive is absurd. It defies all biological principles." The debate had clearly been raging for some time. The holoprojector at the front of the room displayed detailed neural pathway diagrams from various species, with pain receptors highlighted in angry red. "I assure you," Professor Nelb tried again, "that in certain species, pain receptors serve as warning systems, not terminal shutdown mechanisms." "The research is quite heresy," shouted Drix, a normally quiet Volturi whose membrane was now fully opaque with anxiety. "Next you'll claim that beings can survive without quantum stabilizers or function with only one brain." Krill moved toward Professor Nelb, ready to suggest an emergency class dismissal, when the doors at the back of the lecture hall slid open again. The entire room fell silent as Conrad Young walked in. Conrad was the only human student at Galactic Academy, part of the new interspecies exchange program. At 28 Earth years, he was older than the typical Academy student, having already completed medical school on Earth before joining the program. His usual confident stride was noticeably absent as he limped into the room, his face pale and drawn. Most shocking of all was his right arm, bent at an unnatural angle and supported by a makeshift sling fashioned from his jacket. The visible portion of the limb was swollen and discolored with angry purples and yellows. The classroom erupted into chaos. "It's dying!" shrieked a Traxian student, leaping onto her desk. "Containment breach! Biological hazard!" bellowed Gorks, a Plutonian whose defensive spines had fully deployed. Several students nearest to Conrad scrambled away, knocking over chairs and equipment in their panic. 2 Malorians fainted outright, their gelatinous bodies pooling onto the floor. Conrad winced at the noise but continued his painful journey to his usual seat in the 3rd row. Each step clearly caused him discomfort, but he persisted, finally lowering himself carefully into his chair. "Sorry I'm late, Professor," he said, his voice strained but steady. "Had a bit of an accident in the 0G rugby match this morning." Professor Nelb stood frozen, his translucent skin now flushed a deep purple with alarm. "Mr. Young, you should be in stasis. Emergency medical stasis." Conrad shook his head slightly. "No need, Professor. It's just a broken arm. The medical center said it, but I didn't want to miss your lecture on comparative neurology. I've been looking forward to it all semester." The room fell into stunned silence again, broken only by the soft whimpers of distressed students and the low hum of the environmental systems working overtime to process the flood of stress pheromones. Zira, who had been arguing most vehemently about pain's fatal nature, slowly approached Conrad, her scientific curiosity temporarily overcoming her horror. Her 4 eyes blinked in rapid succession as she studied him. You are experiencing pain signals, right now?" she asked, her translator struggling to find the right words for such an unthinkable concept. Conrad nodded. "Yes. About a 7 out of 10 on our scale. The bone was a clean break, though. The medical center gave me something for the pain, but it's wearing off." Blork's eye stalks swiveled rapidly between Conrad and Professor Nelb. But how are you not dead? How is your consciousness still functioning? The neural pathways should have completely shut down to prevent further damage." Conrad smiled weakly. "That's not how human bodies work. Pain tells us something's wrong, but it doesn't shut us down unless it's extreme. It's a warning system, like the professor was saying." Professor Nelb seemed to recover his composure, seeing an unexpected teaching opportunity. "Class, this is precisely what our lecture was addressing. Different evolutionary paths have created different responses to nerve trauma. In Mr. Young's species, pain receptors serve as information carriers, not terminal switches." Drix cautiously extended a sensory tendril toward Conrad. "But the damage to your structural support, the bone is broken." "Severed, fractured," Conrad corrected. "It'll heal in about 6 weeks." This statement caused another wave of murmurs and clicks of disbelief throughout the classroom. Krill finally stepped forward, medical scanner in hand. "Mr. Young, while I respect your dedication to education, I must insist on examining you. The stress your condition is causing your classmates alone is grounds for intervention." Conrad nodded, allowing Krill to scan his broken arm. The device hummed softly as it recorded data. Krill's eyes widened as he read the results. "Fascinating. The bone has indeed fractured completely, yet the neural networks are still fully operational. There's inflammation, increased blood flow, and is that natural bone knitting I'm detecting, without regenerative supplements?" "That's normal for humans," Conrad explained. "Our bones heal themselves over time." Professor Nelb had regained his scholarly enthusiasm. "Class, this is an extraordinary demonstration of what we've been discussing. Mr. Young's species has evolved to use pain as a communication system, not a shutdown mechanism. The discomfort he's experiencing is directing his body's healing resources to the injured area." Zira, still keeping a safe distance, asked, "But why would evolution select for continued consciousness during injury? Wouldn't a shutdown protocol be more efficient for preservation?" Conrad shifted in his seat, trying to find a more comfortable position. "For predatory species like humans, shutting down would mean death in the wild. We evolved to keep functioning through injuries so we could escape threats or continue hunting." "Barbarians," whispered one of the Zelthorians who had partially emerged from its exoskeleton. "Survivors," corrected Professor Nelb. "Different evolutionary pressures produce different solutions. For beings like the Traxians, whose homeworld had few predators but many toxic substances, immediate biological shutdown upon pain prevents the spread of toxins. For humans, who evolved as persistence hunters on a predator-filled world, continuing to function despite injury was necessary for survival. The class was beginning to calm somewhat, scientific curiosity slowly replacing panic. Conrad used his good arm to extract a datapad from his bag, wincing as the movement jostled his injured limb. "May I suggest," Conrad said, "that we continue with the lecture? I'm already here, and this seems like an excellent practical example of the very theories we're discussing." Professor Nelb nodded enthusiastically. "An excellent suggestion. In fact, Mr. Young, would you be willing to share your experience with the class? A first-hand account would be invaluable." Conrad looked uncomfortable with being the center of attention but nodded. "If it helps them understand." "Please describe how you sustained this injury and your body's response," Professor Nelb prompted. Conrad took a deep breath. "I was playing zero-G rugby with some of the maintenance staff. It's a modified version of an earth sport. During a tackle, I lost my orientation and collided with a wall extension. My arm was extended and took the full impact. I felt an immediate sharp pain and heard the crack of the bone. Several students winced or emitted distress sounds. My first reaction was to grab my arm and curl around it protectively. That's instinctive. Then I felt nauseous and dizzy for a few minutes. That's shock setting in, a temporary defense mechanism. My body released adrenaline, a hormone that helps mask pain temporarily and increases heart rate to prepare for fight or flight." Krill was recording every word, his scanner still directed at Conrad's arm. "Remarkable. And you remained conscious throughout?" "Yes. The medical center staff reset the bone and put it in this temporary cast until the swelling goes down. Then they'll replace it with a more permanent one." Zira had edged closer, her scientific interest clearly overcoming her distress. "And during this setting procedure, were you conscious then too?" Conrad nodded. "They gave me local anesthetics, chemicals that temporarily block pain signals from reaching the brain. I was awake, but couldn't feel the manipulation of the bone." "This challenges everything we understand about neurological systems," Blork said. Eye stalks now focused intently on Conrad. "Our medical philosophies are built on the principle that pain beyond certain thresholds is automatically fatal. That's because most galactic species evolved from prey animals," Professor Nelb explained. "Humans are one of the few spacefaring species with a predatory evolutionary history." Drix had fully extended his sensory tendrils now, fascinated. "Can all humans survive such trauma? Or are you a genetic anomaly, Conrad Young?" "Most humans can endure significant pain," Conrad replied, "though our tolerances vary individually. What's considered severe pain for one person might be moderate for another." "And what is the purpose of these colors on your skin?" asked one of the previously fainted Malorians who had reformed into a sitting position. Conrad looked down at the bruising. "That's bruising broken blood vessels under the skin. It's part of the inflammatory response. The discoloration will fade as I heal." Professor Nelb moved to the holoprojector and pulled up a new diagram. "Class, let's use this opportunity to compare human neurological responses to those of your own species. Mr. Young's condition provides us with a remarkable case study." For the next hour, the lecture proceeded with unprecedented student engagement. Conrad answered countless questions about human pain responses, healing mechanisms, and evolutionary advantages. The initial horror had transformed into scientific fascination, though several students still maintained a safe distance from the injured human. As the class neared its end, Zira raised her hand. Professor, given what we've learned today, I wish to formally retract my earlier position. While pain is indeed fatal for Traxians and many other species, it is clear that evolution has produced alternative strategies that are equally valid. The human approach to pain is terrifyingly efficient. Professor Nelb beamed, his 3 hearts visibly pulsing faster through his transparent chest. This is why comparative xenobiology is so vital to our understanding of life in the galaxy. What one species considers impossible may be ordinary for another. As the class ended, Conrad struggled to gather his materials one-handed. Krill approached him cautiously. "You should return to the medical center for monitoring," Krill advised. "Your presence here has been educational, but your healing should be the priority." Conrad nodded, looking tired. The pain medication had clearly worn off completely, and his face was drawn with discomfort. "I think you're right. I didn't realize how much energy healing takes." To everyone's surprise, Zira stepped forward. "I will assist you to the medical center. As a xenobiology specialist, I should observe more of this healing process." "I'll join you," Blork added, eye stalk still fixed on Conrad's arm. "For academic purposes." As the small group left the lecture hall, Professor Nelb addressed the remaining students. "Tomorrow, we will discuss respiratory adaptations across species. I expect a less dramatic session, but equally educational." The medical center of Galactic Academy occupied an entire wing of the science building, designed to accommodate the vastly different biological needs of its diverse student body. Dr. Thrax, the head physician, was a Vixillian with 6 specialized limbs perfect for delicate medical procedures. When Conrad entered flanked by his curious classmates, Dr. Thrax emitted a low whistle through his breathing spiracles. "Back so soon, Mr. Young. I specifically advised against attending classes today," Dr. Thrax said, leading them to an examination room. The medical scanner hummed as it adjusted to human physiology. "Sorry, Doctor. I didn't want to miss Professor Nelb's lecture," Conrad replied, carefully sitting on the examination table. Dr. Thrax's compound eyes shifted to take in Zira and Blork. "And you've brought an audience this time." Zira stepped forward. "We are here for academic observation, Doctor. The human's injury has challenged our understanding of pain response. Professor Nelb suggested we continue our studies. With the patient's consent, I presume?" Dr. Thrax looked at Conrad. Conrad nodded. "It's fine. They're just curious." Dr. Thrax carefully examined Conrad's arm, removing the temporary cast to check the setting. "The bone alignment is holding well, but the swelling has increased. I'll administer another anti-inflammatory and pain reliever." Blork leaned closer, eye stalks extended to their full length. "The human will accept more chemicals without a detoxification chamber. Human metabolism processes these medications gradually," Dr. Thrax explained. "Their liver filters the compounds naturally." "Fascinating inefficiency," Blork commented. "Our species would require immediate quantum purification after any chemical intervention." Dr. Thrax prepared an injection, which made Zira step back involuntarily. "You're penetrating the protective layer with a metal spike." "It's a standard hypodermic needle," Dr. Thrax explained. "The fastest way to deliver medication to humans is directly into the bloodstream." Conrad winced slightly as the needle entered his arm, which caused both alien students to emit stress pheromones. "Does that not cause additional pain?" Zira asked, her scales rippling with concern. "Just a pinch," Conrad said. "Nothing compared to the broken bone." Dr. Thrax applied a more permanent cast to Conrad's arm, explaining each step to the fascinated students. "This material will harden completely in 30 minutes. It's porous enough to allow the skin to breathe but rigid enough to keep the bone properly aligned during healing. And how long until full recovery? Blork asked. 6 to 8 weeks for humans, Dr. Thrax replied. Their bone regeneration is quite remarkable for non-engineered beings, but still slower than many species with enhanced healing abilities. As Dr. Thrax finished with the cast, he turned to Conrad. I'm ordering you to rest for at least 24 hours. Your body needs energy for healing, which means you need food and sleep. No more classes today. Conrad nodded, already feeling the effects of the pain medication. I'll head back to my quarters. We will escort you, Zira declared, to ensure your compliance with medical directives. The walk to the residential wing was slow. Conrad's quarters were in the special adaptation section, where environments could be customized for species with unique needs. As they approached his door, Conrad swayed slightly on his feet. Are you experiencing another trauma? Blork asked anxiously. No, just tired. The medication makes me drowsy, Conrad explained as he pressed his palm to the identification panel. The door slid open to reveal a room set to Earth normal gravity and atmosphere. Zira and Blork hesitated at the threshold, their environmental suits automatically activating to protect them from the unfamiliar conditions inside. You may enter if you wish, Conrad offered. The gravity's a bit stronger than standard Academy settings, but your suits will compensate. The alien students cautiously followed him inside, looking around with evident curiosity at the human living space. It was sparsely decorated but contained several items from Earth books, photographs, and a small plant growing under a specialized light. Conrad carefully lowered himself onto his bed, propping his casted arm on a pillow. I apologize, but I think I need to rest now. Zira nodded but seemed reluctant to leave. Conrad Young, I have a personal query if permitted. Go ahead. Does your species not fear pain? The concept of voluntarily enduring neural trauma for extended periods is difficult to comprehend. Conrad considered this for a moment. We do fear pain, probably as much as your species does. The difference is we fear death more. We evolved to push through pain because stopping meant dying. Blork's eye stalks drooped slightly. A harsh evolutionary path, but effective, Conrad added. It got us to the stars, just like your evolutionary adaptations got you here. Zira made a gesture that her translator indicated was a sign of respect. We will leave you to your healing process. But I request permission to document your recovery for my xenobiology research. Conrad smiled tiredly. Sure, it might help future human exchange students if the medical staff better understands our healing process. After the alien students left, Conrad drifted into sleep, the pain medication finally dulling the throbbing in his arm to a manageable level. Over the next several weeks, Conrad's broken arm became something of a scientific marvel at the Academy. Professor Nelb devoted an entire lecture series to comparative injury responses across species, with Conrad as a willing demonstration subject. Weekly scans showed the gradual knitting of the bone, which fascinated students who were accustomed to either immediate regeneration or permanent damage as the only possible outcomes of physical trauma. Zira had taken to accompanying Conrad to his medical checkups, recording every detail for her research. Her initial horror had transformed into scientific admiration, though she still couldn't fully comprehend the evolutionary advantage of such a slow healing process. 4 weeks after the injury, Conrad sat in the medical center as Dr. Thrax performed another scan of his healing arm. The calcification is proceeding exceptionally well, Dr. Thrax announced. Another 2 weeks and we can remove the cast. Zira, who was present as usual, peered at the scan results. The bone appears to be stronger at the fracture point than surrounding areas. Is this normal? Completely normal, Dr. Thrax confirmed. Human bones often heal stronger at the break point. Their bodies lay down extra calcium there, creating a reinforced section. Adaptive learning within a single organism, Zira marveled. Most species would require generational genetic modifications to achieve such adaptation. Conrad flexed his fingers, which extended from the end of the cast. The stiffness is improving too. Yes, maintain those movement exercises, Dr. Thrax instructed. Keeping the joints mobile prevents muscle atrophy during healing. As they left the medical center, Conrad and Zira encountered Blork and Drix in the corridor, engaged in animated discussion. "Conrad," Blork called, eye stalks swiveling enthusiastically. "We were just debating the application of human pain endurance principles to spacecraft emergency protocols." Conrad raised an eyebrow. "Oh," Drix extended a sensory tendril in greeting. "Your species' ability to function during system damage has significant implications for emergency response design. Most ship systems are designed to shut down damaged sections immediately, mimicking biological pain responses of most spacefaring species. But what if," Blork continued excitedly, "we designed systems that could continue partial function despite damage, like human limbs that can still operate at reduced efficiency when injured?" Conrad smiled. "That's actually how many Earth ships are designed. Redundant systems, damage control teams, emergency patches, all based on the principle that keeping something partially operational is better than total shutdown." The group moved to the Academy's common area, where students from dozens of species gathered between classes. As they settled at a table, their conversation attracted other curious students. "Is it true your bones are becoming stronger because they were broken?" asked a Thelonian student, whose silicon-based body found the concept of biological repair completely foreign. "In a way," Conrad explained. "The healed section will have more density than before." "And you will retain full functionality?" questioned a gelatinous Malorian. "Eventually, yes. There might be some weather sensitivity at the break site, but otherwise it'll be as good as new." Professor Nelb approached their table, his transparent skin glowing with academic excitement. "Mr. Young, just the human I was hoping to find. How fortuitous to find you with Miss Zira as well." Conrad nodded in greeting. "Professor, how can I help you?" "The Galactic Scientific Council has expressed interest in Zira's research on human pain endurance and healing mechanisms. They've requested a presentation at next month's Interspecies Medical Conference." Zira's scales flushed a bright purple with excitement. "The Council has noticed my work." "This is unprecedented for an undergraduate." "Indeed," Professor Nelb agreed. "And they've specifically requested that Mr. Young participate if willing. Your first-hand account would be invaluable." Conrad looked surprised. "Me? I'm not a xenobiology expert." "No, but you are the only human at the Academy who has undergone a documented injury and healing process under observation. Your perspective would add significant weight to the presentation." Blork's eye stalks quivered with excitement. "This could revolutionize emergency medical protocols throughout the Federation. Most medical facilities are completely unprepared to treat humans who remain conscious during serious injuries." Conrad considered the request. "I suppose if it helps improve medical care for humans in Federation space, I should participate." "Excellent." Professor Nelb's heart visibly pulsed faster through his transparent chest. "The conference is on Proxima Station in 3 weeks. Your cast should be removed by then, making it perfect timing to showcase the complete healing cycle." The next 3 weeks passed quickly. Conrad's arm continued to heal, and he worked with Zira to prepare their presentation for the conference. When the day finally came to remove the cast, a small crowd of xenobiology students gathered in the medical center to witness the procedure. Dr. Thrax used a specialized tool to carefully cut through the hardened material. "Remain still, Mr. Young. This vibration tool will only cut the cast material, not your skin." As the cast fell away in two pieces, Conrad's pale, slightly atrophied arm was revealed. The assembled students murmured and clicked in fascination. The structural support is completely removed, yet the limb maintains integrity, observed one Plutonian student. Conrad carefully flexed his arm, wincing slightly at the stiffness. "It's weaker from disuse, but the bone is healed." Dr. Thrax ran a final scan. "Excellent calcification. The fracture is fully healed, though I recommend gradual return to full activity over the next 2 weeks." Zira recorded every detail, her 4 eyes blinking rapidly with excitement. "This completes our documentation of the entire healing cycle." The conference presentation will now cover the complete process from injury to recovery. 2 days later, Conrad, Zira, Professor Nelb, and Dr. Thrax boarded a transport vessel bound for Proxima Station, where the Interspecies Medical Conference was being held. The station orbited a neutron star, using its intense radiation for power generation, while housing one of the largest medical research facilities in the sector. As they settled into their quarters on the station, Conrad looked out the viewport at the swirling energy patterns of the neutron star. "I never imagined my broken arm would lead to a scientific presentation." Zira, who was organizing her research materials, looked up. "In my culture, we have a saying, 'Knowledge flows from unexpected sources.' Your injury has taught us more about human physiology than years of theoretical study." Still, it's strange to think that something so ordinary for humans getting injured and healing could be seen as revolutionary by other species. "That is the beauty of comparative xenobiology," Professor Nelb interjected, entering their shared common area. "What seems mundane to one species can be impossible for another." The Galactic Scientific Council has scheduled our presentation for tomorrow morning, prime attendance hours. The conference hall was packed the next day. Hundreds of medical professionals, scientists, and academics from across the Federation had gathered to hear the presentation titled "Pain Without Cessation: Human Neurological Responses and Healing Mechanisms." Zira began the presentation by explaining the fundamental differences between human pain responses and those of most known spacefaring species. Her detailed scans and documentation of Conrad's recovery process drew gasps and murmurs from the audience. When it was Conrad's turn to speak, he stood at the podium, looking out at the diverse collection of beings. "For humans, pain is a messenger, not an executioner. It tells us where damage has occurred and prevents us from making it worse, but it doesn't shut down our systems. This evolved because on our world, stopping meant dying." A Vixilian physician raised one of her 6 limbs. "But how do you prevent cascading neural damage? In most species, pain beyond certain thresholds automatically triggers unconsciousness to prevent brain damage. Our brains produce natural chemicals called endorphins that moderate pain signals," Conrad explained. "In extreme cases, we can lose consciousness, but our threshold is much higher than most species." "And the psychological impact?" asked a Malorian researcher. "How does your species cope with the memory of pain?" "It varies by individual. Some develop trauma responses, others adapt more easily. We've developed numerous psychological techniques to process pain experiences." The questions continued for nearly an hour, ranging from the specifics of bone healing to the evolutionary advantages of pain endurance. By the end, the audience seemed both disturbed and fascinated by human resilience. As they concluded their presentation, the head of the Galactic Scientific Council, a venerable Thelonian named Dr. Ricks, approached the stage. This research has significant implications for Federation emergency medical protocols, Dr. Ricks announced. As human presence in Federation space increases, our medical facilities must adapt to treat patients who remain conscious and functional during conditions we would consider terminal. Dr. Ricks turned to Conrad. Would you be willing to serve as a consultant for the development of human-specific medical protocols? Your first-hand experience would be invaluable. Conrad looked surprised but nodded. If it helps improve care for humans in Federation space, I'd be honored. The conference continued for 3 more days, with Conrad and Zira attending numerous sessions and fielding constant questions about human physiology. Their presentation had sparked intense interest across multiple disciplines, from emergency medicine to spacecraft design. On the final evening, a reception was held for all conference participants. Conrad stood with Zira, Blork, and Professor Nelb, watching the diverse gathering of beings discussing new medical theories and technologies. I never expected my broken arm would lead to all this, Conrad said, flexing his newly healed limb. Zira's scales rippled with amusement. In the history of interspecies relations, this may be the first time an injury has advanced medical understanding so significantly. Blork's eye stalks swiveled toward Conrad. Your species' ability to endure pain challenges our most fundamental assumptions about consciousness and survival. It's both terrifying and inspiring. Professor Nelb's transparent skin glowed with pride. This is precisely why the exchange program was created, to challenge assumptions and expand understanding across species. Your broken arm, Mr. Young, may have done more for human-alien relations than 100 diplomatic missions. Dr. Thrax joined their group, carrying a data crystal. The Council has compiled all the conference findings related to your presentation. They're establishing a new research division focused on adapting Federation medical protocols for human patients. As the reception wound down, Conrad found himself standing alone with Zira, watching the neutron star through the station's main viewport. When I first saw you walk into class with that broken arm, Zira admitted, I was certain you were moments from death. In my culture, we have rituals for those experiencing terminal pain, ways to ease the transition to non-existence. Conrad smiled. And now I understand that different evolutionary paths create different relationships with pain. Your species' endurance isn't barbaric as I first thought. It's simply a different solution to the universal problem of survival. We're not better, just different, Conrad agreed. Humans couldn't survive the toxic environments Traxians thrive in, and we can't regenerate limbs like Malorians. Yet we've all reached the stars, Zira observed. Different paths, same destination. As they prepared to return to the academy the following day, Conrad reflected on how an unfortunate accident had become a valuable learning opportunity. His broken arm had not only healed stronger than before, but had strengthened understanding between species. 6 months later, Conrad stood before a new class of exchange students at Galactic Academy, his once broken arm now fully healed and functional. As the Academy's newly appointed human physiology instructor, he was tasked with introducing the diverse student body to the peculiarities of human biology. Welcome to Introduction to Human Physiological Responses, he began. My name is Conrad Young, and I'll be your instructor this semester. A Traxian student in the front row raised her hand immediately. Professor Young, is it true you survived a complete bone fracture while conscious? The case study is required reading in our preliminary xenobiology course. Conrad smiled, remembering how far they'd come from that day when he'd walked into class with a broken arm. Yes, that's true. And by the end of this course, you'll understand not only how humans survive injuries, but how our evolutionary responses to pain shaped our entire civilization. As he began his lecture, Conrad noticed Zira watching from the doorway, her scales glowing with the purple hue of scientific satisfaction. Her research had earned her accelerated placement in the Academy's graduate program, and the medical protocols they'd helped develop were now standard throughout Federation space. What had started as an argument about whether pain was fatal had transformed into a deeper understanding of the diverse ways life adapted to survive across the galaxy. Different paths, same destination, sentient beings reaching for the stars, each in their own unique way.